Welcome to She Counts, the Real Talk podcast for women in accounting. We're your hosts, Nancy McClelland
and Questian Telka.
And every episode, we're digging into the real experiences, challenges, and unspoken truths of life in this profession.
Because if you've ever felt like you're the only one, you're not, and you shouldn't have to figure this out alone.
Special thanks to our Season 2 sponsors, Forwardly, Relay, and Client Hub. We are so grateful to them for helping us bring these conversations to life, enabling us to share out loud what everyone's thinking, but no one's saying. Learn more about them on our sponsors page at shecounts.show.
Today's episode is called Marking Ourselves Down, and we have a very special guest with us today, Candy Bellau. She is one of our Theater of Public Speaking sisters. She's a top sister, and she is also an incredible storyteller. She herself is a podcaster and the co-host of Unbalanced Podcast, which is one of Nancy and my favorites. And today we're going to be discussing gender disparities in pricing and how women in accounting are undercharging compared to men. I certainly know that I am guilty of this. We're going to discuss why it matters and what we can do about it. But before we get into that, I kind of want to back up to a topic that we've discussed before, which is making business happen when life happens. And anybody who's tuned in before knows that Nancy has had had some situations taking place with her mom, and that continues to happen now. And because of it, which I'm going to share some of the details about in a minute, Candy has so kindly offered to step in and be part of this episode with us today, because when you have life happening and you're trying to record a podcast episode, every once in a while something comes up and you have to take a step back and you need to manage that situation. So unfortunately, Nancy has a mother who is in a nursing care facility, very recently moved out of her house into a nursing care facility. I know so many of us are managing, caring for aging parents, caring for children all at the same time. And very recently, she got the not so great news from Medicare. It's Medicare, right? I always get
Medicaid.
Medicaid.
Yeah,
See, I always get
Medicaid.
those two confused. Yeah. The news from Medicaid that they wouldn't be covering some things that they should definitely be taking care of and covering. And at the same time, found out that her mom had to be moved out of the facility that she is currently in with 2 days notice to a new facility. So we're recording this podcast and she is jetting off once again to take care of her mom in an entirely different state. And it's just, we wanted to share what was going on because this is reality that we're all dealing with regularly in our lives on a daily basis. And we want our listeners to know these are not just topics that we don't just get on here and pick a topic and then talk about it. These are things we're really facing and dealing with in our lives. And we're so grateful to have Candy step in and talk to us about a topic that is really important for women in accounting and, well, women in business in general. And so thank you, Candy, so much for coming to our rescue.
Thank you both so much for having me and trusting me with this topic, and to touch on a little bit of what Nancy's going through. There are some people that know I went through a similar situation with my mother in another state, and having to get on a plane constantly to go and take care of things. And it was a long, very difficult process, and a lot of amazing supportive people in my corner that helped me, that maybe weren't necessarily family, but were the people I've made family in my life that helped me get through it. But I will say, while I was in it, it was hard. It was so hard, and it was so hard to get clarity. But when it ended, unfortunately, mom did pass, that time afterwards that I took really gave me a lot of clarity on what was I doing with my life? What was I doing with my family? Why am I running my business this way? What do I really want? And it's really hard to do when you're in it, but there's a lot of insight I feel like I got after, and I've really given myself the grace and time to reflect on that of, and we talked a little bit about fraud, and I've mentioned this with Nancy, and, I felt like there was a fraud within that's been doing all the things I'm supposed to do, which also leads to pricing problems, doing what you're supposed to do, being the nice one, helping, and going along with that. And then realizing in the end, like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it did help me. It's helped me a lot. It's sad that I had to go through that, but I'm happy where I am today.
Candy, I'm so grateful to you. I love the fact that Candy spent a long time on the phone with me yesterday. It's very difficult for me to talk about, so I'm grateful that you two are talking about it for me because I really do want to be very public about the struggles I'm going through because I know I'm not the only one, and I'm very grateful to both of you for being such incredible supports in my life.
Oh, we love you.
Well, in addition to the support that she's providing to me today, here on She Counts and uh, in helping me through this crisis with my mother, I think that she's one of my favorite people in the world for lots of other reasons too. I was lucky enough to be in the same theater of public speaking cohort with her, and so we really got to know each other. And I've also been lucky enough to see her speak on fighting fraud, which as a CFE is one of her greatest passions. And she's really inspired me with her brutal honesty about her own struggles on both the Unbalanced podcast and in the amazing podcast I heard you record last year with Heather Satterley from Woodard. That was a really impactful one for me, and is the reason that when we knew we wanted to do an episode about pricing, I knew I wanted you to be our guest because the lessons you've learned, which we'll hear a little bit about today, are just so useful for all of us. So, welcome to She Counts, Candy. Thank you for being here.
Oh my gosh. Thank you both so much for having me a guest on She Counts. I love this podcast. And I talk about it on Unbalanced because, and I do Unbalanced with Samantha Halburn.
Yay,
She's my,
Sam.
she's awesome.
I see it.
And yeah, so we love She Counts. So thank you so much for having me here.
Well, we love, as you know, then, because you listen, launching every episode with a story. And we know that you have one that's really going to set the scene for this very important topic. I mean, I need this topic as much as anybody else out there. So I'm all ears.
Well, I do like to talk about this topic a lot because I feel like if I had had somebody to speak to back in the day, I might not have gone through all the terrible things I did. And, now that it's easy now, I'm on the other side. But there were very, very, very dark days of not knowing what I was doing, of I almost felt like I was constantly getting slapped with reality checks of, what I was charging, what I was doing for people, what other people were charging, my skill set, my knowledge. I just when I was working for people, I had no problem asking for what I was worth. I just
Oh, that's
did it.
interesting. So, when you were
Yeah.
at a firm and you were,
Mm.
so do you mean no problem asking for uh, what you were worth in terms of your compensation, or do you mean like when you were pricing for their clients, you were good at that, or both?
When I was getting compensated, I had no difficulty speaking up.
Wow, that's
I am talking
amazing.
from a young age because at a young age, I ended up having to support the family. By the time I was 16, I paid the rent for our family.
Wow.
Mm.
And I was able to negotiate a full-time salary as a high school student doing part-time work. because it clicked to me that they were paying somebody so much money for a job that I could easily do, but they wanted to pay me the minimum wage that I was answering phones to do the job.
And so you saw what
And
you were actually doing, and you were value billing.
yes, and I had no thought of being an accountant. That wasn't what I was going to do. Um, but my aunt was the bookkeeper and she taught me the job. And this is manual. We're talking back in the
Right.
day when there were the green
The
ledger
green
books.
ledgers.
Yes. And I thought it was so dumb and easy. And I just kept thinking, I can't believe they pay people to do this stuff. It's so easy. And I was there to answer phones and file. So I was getting minimum wage, which I think was like $4.25 back then.
Oh
This
my
is
goodness.
back in the 1900s. Um, but when my aunt left, she was part time, they hired a full time person to take her job and they couldn't do it. And so they said, we heard you know what to do. Could you fix it? And I did it, fixed it,
Wow.
brought another person in. They fired her. She messed everything up. And they said, could you fix it again? And I said, yes, but I'm going to make you a deal that'll save you money. And they said, all right, what are you going to do? And I said, well, I know what you were paying her. I said, why don't you pay me what you were paying her? I will come in every day after school. You should send a car to pick me up so I'm not wasting time walking here. I'll also work on Saturdays. I will do the entire job, fix everything, and here's how you're going to save money. I'm going to answer the phones and file for free. You don't have to pay me that $4.25 an hour anymore.
Wow.
And they,
Wow. So
Smart.
you rolled both of those jobs into one.
yes. And they
Yes.
How
agreed.
old were you?
I was about 15 or 16 there.
That's
Wow.
amazing. Wow.
Yeah.
Chutzpah.
But somewhere when I had my own practice, I don't know what the heck happened to me, but the rock star that I used to be, because I look back, I negotiated, I would get bonuses that were 100% of my salary when I lived in New York and I worked and I was running huge companies and I was making so much money. And
Wow.
then I went to open my own firm and it was different being an employee where I was getting paid to be a rock star and I was expecting it. I knew what they were making. I saw their numbers. I knew what I generated. I knew what I did. And I wanted to get paid fairly for it. And I was. And I always made sure I was. But when I had my own firm, I
Although
had a
I'm going
lot.
to interrupt for a second to say it sounds to me that that's because you had transparency. And a lot of women working in CPA firms do not have transparency into what other people are making to do the same job. So that goes back to an earlier episode that Question and I recorded about the glass ceiling, um, where I think transparency is an essential piece of this puzzle, no matter whether you're in private practice or you're working in a CPA firm or you're working in corporate. If we don't know what somebody who's doing the same job as us is making, or at least what that range is, then it is very, very difficult. Especially as women, we will tend to underprice ourselves. So I do feel like that's part of
Yeah.
this here, is that you had that transparency when you were an employee. You didn't have that same transparency, like what will a client pay for, right?
Yeah, so it's much more abstract, these numbers that
Mhm.
we're trying to come up with. We don't have necessarily the comparison like you would in that situation. But also, to your point, in these firms, it becomes very it's you're they tell you not to talk about it. I was told not to share
Yes.
what my salary was. And so it was like this very taboo thing that you don't talk to people about. So unless you had a colleague who happened to be open enough with you to tell you what they were making, you were never going to know if you were on the same pay scale or a different one for the work that you're doing. So, yeah, it's difficult to know how to ask. One thing that, and I think we might have mentioned this before as well, and there are some states that are starting to do this, is making it illegal to ask for people's salaries for prior jobs, because that continues the pay disparity for women because we are habitually on a lower pay scale. But I find it so interesting that Candy, that you could ask for it if you're working for someone but then I had a hard time in your first. I mean, I personally have a hard time I've had a hard time in both of those situations. I mean, I will do it, but it's like building that confidence. Like, I know that I am worth this amount, but it seems like there's so much pushback. And I wonder if part of it is how I and how other women maybe react to having someone question your rate or question your value. Like, am I caving too much too quickly versus, coming back and saying, here's the value in it. So just food for thought as we're talking about and having the conversation.
For sure. And Candy, I want to ask specifically, and of course I'm asking this because I already know the answer. But because I heard because I heard your podcast with Heather Satterley last year. But to get back to your story, what happened when you started your own firm and you had problems pricing? Do you mind sharing openly with us about some of those issues?
Well, there was a lot of problems. I definitely did not, and it's there was also something in this mentality of when I went from New York to New Orleans. When I lived in New York, I knew what I could command. I had a whole network of people. I had people that were calling me to come work, and I could ask my price and they'd say, whatever you want, we just need you. And I got accustomed to that. When I moved to New Orleans, I had zero network. I had nobody and as much as my husband knew everybody, he's like the mayor, it didn't help me because the way they worked in New Orleans was they hired their friend they went to school with. You know, everybody works with people they know, and they didn't know me. I was an outsider. I was a New Yorker. Like, people from New Orleans don't like New Yorkers or people from California. Even my husband used to write blog posts about these horrible people from New York. And I was like,
You're
he's
like,
like, you're not like them. I'm like,
Oh, wow.
don't. Yeah. So he's like, New Yorkers ruin New Orleans. And so I was an outsider. So when I started, I was making money in New York when I had my firm. And I know this sounds crazy. And I walked away from it and moved for love to New Orleans, walked away from everything, started up. And I thought, oh, these people can't afford New York prices.
Oh, gosh.
And I immediately brought it way down. And I knew what I was bringing to the table. I knew what I have years of experience, all the things I know. And I didn't ask for the same price I was asking for in New York. I was asking for like maybe $25 an hour. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is just like too much.
Wow.
And I had already had a huge pinnacle of my career. I had done so much. And here I am asking for almost nothing. And then I did start doing some consulting, which paid better, but not like it was a third of maybe or even less of what I was getting in New York. But I thought, my husband's like, wow, you're making a lot of money here. And I'm like, you have no idea what money is. Like, if you think this is money, but it was just, I had to work, I had to eat, I had to do things. But at the same time, I was lying about my reality and trying to live the same lifestyle I had in New York without making the money and trying to hide it and trying to, sure, we can go out for dinner. Yeah, let's go on vacation. I had two homes. I had a vacation house in the Poconos and a home on a lake in New York, in Long Island, that I was trying to pay for
Mm.
while living in New
On
Orleans
And you were making a
at a
third what you had been
fraction of the
making before.
cost.
Wow.
And I did everything I would never let a client do. I depleted my retirement account, which was very large because I was making so much money in New York. I all my bonuses went away, and I'd get a year's salary as a bonus. I'd put it away. So I went through that. I started using credit cards, started taking cash advances. And I remember the day I couldn't pay the minimum on my credit card and I had the mortgages due.
Oh, no.
And I didn't know what I was going to do. And I admitted he was then my boyfriend. I don't know why this man married me. Every time I tell the story, I'm like, why did he marry me? I've given him every red flag there is. Um, and I told him, and he didn't speak to me for 3 days. And then he said, we're going to figure this out. And my husband's a former pro cyclist who raced most of the year and worked a few months, saved his money, and lived very frugally off of what he made to make it last for the year. I was not contributing to our household. And I said, well, you paid for the bills before I got here. Why should I pay for them now? But I didn't want him to know it was that I couldn't afford to give him money too.
Oh, wow.
And so I finally broke down and just told him everything. And we did. It took a hot minute. We worked through it. And there was more to that with, the pricing and just bad choices, bad decisions, predatory loans. I would never let a client, like I said, do what I did. And my clients were all making money and I was charging them almost nothing. And I did everything for them. Like they probably didn't have to get up out of bed in the morning. I ran their teams. I did their HR. I did all compliance. I did
Wow.
books. I'd even answer the phones. I'd pick up their mail. I mean, I did everything.
Oh
And
my
the
goodness.
top I was charging was $350 a month.
Wow.
Wow.
I was working around the clock. It was bad.
It was
It was
bad.
really
So
bad.
what changed? How did you flip that? Like,
Well, I dealt with that old situation, which lingered for a while because there was, first it paid off the predatory loans and I had to negotiate my credit cards. I ended up, one house went, we did a deed in lieu. So I gave it back to the bank. The other one, we did a short sale. So my credit was smashed. Like it was terrible. This is me, a girl who in New York, I stopped on the way to the beach into a dealership and said, I just wanted to see what it would be like to have a convertible. I pulled into BMW. I left and took the BMW to the beach.
Oh my goodness.
And I said, I don't have my checkbook. I have nothing with me. And they said, we ran your credit. We don't think you've ever not returned a book to the library. Take the call. You're good. Just stop in next week and we'll do the paperwork. And I'm like, okay. And they said, go show off to your friends that you've got a convertible BMW. Right.
Oh my
And here I
goodness.
am, not able to pay like minimum on my credit card. It was wild. I didn't know the person I'd become. And, it just kept compounding. And I thought it was getting a little bit better. And I signed up for a class. I had heard about a Facebook post, learn marketing for accountants. And I thought, this is what I need. And it was $6,000. I was broke. Like I used to always have money. I was broke. And I signed up for this class. And it was a Facebook group. And in the group, they had a marketing script where they taught you what to say. And I thought it was all for accounting firm owners and accountants. It wasn't. It was tired of doing hair, be an accountant. Don't want to fix cars anymore, be an accountant. Here's the script.
Oh no.
We'll teach you how to get. And I'm
So
sitting
you
in this
spent
group
$6,000 and
with
that's what you got?
morons, literal morons in this
Oh
group.
my
Mixed
God.
in with a few actual real accountants and CPAs, which we all kind of were like, wait, did you think this was something else? And we ended up kind of forming our own. And those are some of the closest friends I still talk to today
wow.
from that group, because we were the only people that we realized they would ask a question like, what's QuickBooks? And we were responding to everything. And then they'd say, just closed my first $4,000 a month deal. How do you record when you buy a loan or you get a loan? Like what is a bank reconciliation?
Wait a minute. So these people were learning the marketing, but they didn't know how to do any of it? How can you close a $4,000 a month deal if you don't
With a
know?
script.
With a script.
With a script.
Oh,
Wow.
Candy.
And
Oh.
I sat there. I never completed this course. I never went through the whole thing. I just sat there getting gut punched. And I don't know how many breakdowns I've had in my life, but this was another one of them. I went and fired every client I had.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Really?
And I went home. And at that point, he was my husband because he loves me. I don't know why, but he does. And I went home and I said, I've got good news. I said, I no longer have low priced clients. And he goes, what do you mean? I said, I fired them all. He goes, I thought you couldn't pay the rent on the office. 'Cause I had a huge office because I was going to be this big success. 1,500 square foot office I had, me and like another person. And
Oh
I
my
fired them
gosh.
all.
Wow.
And he said, why? And I said, need to make room for the good ones. He goes, do you have any leads? I go, nope, but now I could take them.
Wow.
And
I'm
he
like
was just,
sweating thinking
Yeah.
about that. Just like, oh,
And I'm
oh.
thinking about the fact that, like, my apartment isn't even as big.
As
Like,
your
the
as
the
the
place
well,
I
office.
live right now is not even as big as your
yeah,
office
yeah.
was.
We were living in a 600 square foot house in New Orleans with a baby at that point.
Wow.
Oh
But you
my
had a
gosh.
1,500 square foot office that you
I
were
had a
paying
1,500
for.
square foot office.
My
Go figure.
goodness.
With like 3 people. But
Wow.
So
anyway,
how long did it take you to get this first big client, I hope?
the next day,
Really?
I got a call saying, I have somebody that I think could use your help. Could you go see them? I said, absolutely. I have time.
That
And I went to see them. I
just so
talked to
happened to be
them.
free.
And she said, well, what do you think it'll cost? And I said, sounds to me like it'll be 3,500 a month. And she just paused and said, that sounds fair. Where do I sign?
Oh, Candy, that just sounds too good to be true. I mean, you
I'm
went
telling you,
from
somebody like looks out for me somewhere. And then I got another call. I replaced all the clients that I fired with 2 new clients.
Now I have a question for you. If you had still had all of the clients that you were charging a very small amount to, and you had gotten those 2 calls for these other clients, would you have had to say no because you didn't have room for them?
100%. I was working around the clock,
Wow.
Wow.
around the clock, and I was not making it at all. I wasn't taking any pay. It was so
And
bad.
you were paying the people who were working for
I was
you?
paying my employees, they got paid, the rent got paid barely. Um, but it was awful. It was really awful. And I started to realize that you're really good at what you do. You know what you're doing, and you're going to start charging for it. And I did start to realize, I'm doing bookkeeping, and I had done so much in New York. Like, I built large companies. I had done, turnarounds. I had done investigations. I had done so much. And here I am reconciling a few bank accounts every month. And so I did get back into turnarounds and doing consulting and doing higher level work
And at
that
that point, you actually had the experience of your own turnaround to add to that knowledge base and,
Mhm.
to
and
really.
empathy.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
because
Oh.
I used to be a pompous ass because I just always succeeded. So I didn't see any reason for people not. I was like, I don't know what your problem is. Like, I do it. And and then when I lost everything, I'm like, oh, this is what it feels like. It sucks, you know?
Like, this is not
Wow.
And
fun.
it definitely made me way better as a partner with a company to understand what they were going through, to see where they were struggling, to see the tendencies, to get your head out of the sand, to face things head on. Um, it definitely made me better, but it was the one of the worst experiences of my life.
Well, and there was no
Um,
telling while you were in it whether you were going to ever come out of it or not.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's
Yeah.
that's part of the hard part when you're going through something. You can't see your way out of it. It just feels like it's going to be like that forever and you just have to keep holding on for one more day and hoping it gets better.
it's
Um
suffocating. And
yeah.
I also realized, work had always been my safe space, where I was good, where I was loved, where people thought I was fantastic. And of course, I was smiling and pretending, through that. But it felt to me the only way out of it was to work more and to work harder. I wasn't working smarter and I wasn't really thinking about things. Instead of dealing it face on, I just did more work.
Mhm, mhm. I think
And
that's a very, very
busy.
common. I know that I have done that numerous times, that just keep doing more as if that's somehow, and that it turns out that that exacerbates the gap. It exacerbates the problem. It doesn't solve it. And so you do have to find some way to do it differently, and we'll explore some of those solutions and changing the narrative and all of that. But I just gotta say your story is
Yes, fascinating.
astonishing. Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
amazing.
And I talk about it because if I had had one person to speak to during that time, like that I felt like I could admit, I felt like and that's when I started going to conferences and I'd say, so like, how's everything with you? Oh, everything's great. And I'm like, I am the only loser in the accounting industry. I am the
Oh,
only failure. Everybody's successful. I'm the only one that hasn't figured this out. And as I found out, I'm not the only one.
no.
But if I had just had somebody say, well, what do you charge? Or how would you price this? Or am I doing this right? Or, finding out about tools and software and just all the mistakes I was making and not, and I was so afraid that people were going to find me out and then think I wasn't good at my job, where I was really good at my job. I was just bad at running an accounting firm.
Yes, that feels I
Feels
resemble that
familiar.
remark.
It's hard.
It
It's hard.
is really very
It's also a
difficult.
different skill set. It really is. I mean, pricing and operations are different skill sets than bookkeeping, accounting, tax, fraud, all of those things. So I I want to briefly talk about the discrepancy between men and women, and talk about why that happens and why that matters. And so let's start with, I mean, I know we've talked in previous episodes about how women in accounting are paid less than men. And there are a lot of reasons. Questian, I know you did a whole session on, the fact that they lack flexible work opportunities. Um, but this is the side of the topic that you're talking about, Candy, where we actually have some control. Like women, we can't necessarily do, there's only so much we can do about the bigger societal issues. But there are some things that we can control about setting our own prices and asking for higher pay. And the fact of the matter is that when study after study after study, I'm linking to all of them in the show notes,
Yeah.
they show that women are undercharging compared to men. And I believe that by reversing this trend, we can really not only improve, you talked about the personal changes that made in your life and professionally as well, but I really think that we can lift up the industry as a whole. So let's talk about why this is happening. I mean, the median woman in an online labor marketplace in the US sets a bill rate that's 13.5% lower than a median man. Um, there is a lot of data that shows that women, when we're in professional services, set our prices. Um, there's a large range, but like it starts at least 25% lower than men, and it goes to a much larger, larger, lower percent. It's bad. Like it's actually really, really bad. There are also a lot of studies that show that men have higher salary expectations than women, and they price higher because they perceive bringing more value to the labor market, and they're more likely to price based on self-esteem. So we end up with
Yeah.
all of, lots of really nasty consequences here: lower profitability, reduced income, the gender wage gap that I know you talk about a lot. Uh,
I would
how
say that for me, because I fall into that. I fall into that so typical underpricing. Like I do recognize my value, and I know, like Candy said, I'm like, I'm good. I know I'm good at what I do. But I'm still like this whole idea of compassionate pricing is a real
Yes.
problem for me. I mean, I work
Yes.
with nonprofits, right? So it's like I am always trying to be conscientious of the work that they're doing and affordability, but the bottom line is that, like, what we do is not easy. It's complicated. It's hard. It's time consuming, and you need a lot of knowledge to do it correctly. And
Yes.
but
The
I
compassionate pricing thing,
prioritize.
one of the articles that I read, a study in an article was, and this isn't accounting specific, but it was in the veterinary industry, that female veterinarians are constantly, the compassionate pricing thing that you were just saying, that's really huge for them. And they far underprice compared to male veterinarians. So this
I
is
can
not
see
just
that. I
yeah,
mean,
doesn't it make sense?
imagine
Like,
yeah, because imagine somebody taking their pet to the doctor's office and they're like, "Well, I can't afford to pay for that." And so they're like, "Just go ahead and put them to sleep." And so then someone's going,
right.
"Hey, well, I'll just underprice it." And the whole concept of the prioritizing loyalty over revenue and those relationships, when there are situations where I know I need to be increasing my prices or charging more, and it's always in my mind like, can they afford this? And it's like, what I really need to be asking myself is, can you?
Right.
It,
Yeah. And yet we don't wanna take ourselves out of that. Like, I wanna be a helper. I'm proud of being a helper. So, what are some things that we can do about this? We know it's happening. We know that there are consequences, there are lots of drivers to this.
yeah. So for me, one of the big aha moments was I can't help anybody if I have to shut this place down and get a job. So that's going to be of no use to anybody.
Yeah.
If the thing that I want to do is to help, but to help means that I have to be sustainable. And I wasn't using that mindset. I was thinking I'm just going to help, but the person I wasn't helping was me or my team. I was helping everybody else, and everybody else buying second houses, boats and stuff, and here I am thinking, "We'll just have spaghetti again tonight for dinner." And I don't need a second house or boats or things like that, but I need to know that my bills are getting paid and I can sleep at night and not worry about everything. I need to know that I can pay my team and payroll is going to be there and that I have money set aside. So if a client leaves, it's not like, oh my gosh, the sky's falling. It's okay, well, we're prepared for this. And I did not have that time. And Nancy, with mom, that whole situation, I had to end up letting go of a lot of things because I had to make her the priority.
Mhm.
And some of the things I realized and saw from stepping away, and sometimes you're too close to it. Sometimes you're just in so deep. It's easy to stay busy than to actually deal with it. And I know I did that often.
Oh,
Um,
that's so true. I mean, that happens to me. It's like, oh, I don't have time to sit down and take a step back and look at all the rates that I'm charging everyone because I am too much in the hamster wheel right now
I got
trying
to
to
get
get
this work
everything
done.
accomplished.
Right.
Yes.
I have to get it finished. I don't have time to do that, and you leave it and you put it off. And the thing is that there's so much to this that you're just not going to be sustainable and you can't help people. And you start to, you know, at one point I had a team of 12. Right now we're a team of 3. But I would ask them questions. What is it that I thought I'm doing all these great things? What could I do that would make you happy? And, there's a few things. One came to me once when I had promoted her and gave her a raise. And she said, I just want you to know this is the first time in my life that I'm living with somebody out of choice and not need.
Oh,
Because for the first time in my life, I am making enough money to leave. I've never been able to
Wow.
support myself. And so I've always lived with a man. And most of it was
Yeah.
because I had to. And she said the entire dynamic of our relationship has shifted because I know I'm there because I want to be there.
Oh
And I
god, you're breaking
counted,
my heart here, Candy.
right?
That
And
is
I said,
just
okay, this is a new goal of mine. Everybody needs to make a wage that they can live off of without a man. So that became one of my driving
wow.
forces. I have to make enough money that if anybody wants to leave, they can, and they're not going to feel forced they have to stay.
So this was not just about getting you out of a hole and getting you and your family
Mhm.
healthy again. When
It's about
you
your team.
Yeah,
It
and
was.
Question, you talk all the time about remembering your why. Candy's saying she had to remember her why in terms of she's not gonna be able to help anybody if she has to close the business. But you're not just talking about your clients there. You're talking about making a difference in the lives of the people who work with you.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's
And
right.
and I had so many people that were there for me in terms of when I worked for private industry. I had great mentors that got me to where I was. I just forgot it all when I opened my own firm. But you know, there was a few other things is when I went through, I never thought I was having children. And then I went and had a month before I turned 48, I gave birth to a child. So
Wow.
I
here I
had
am
no
my whole
idea. That's
life.
incredible.
I was a horrible boss to people who had given birth to children because they would say the kid's sick. And I'm like, well, clearly you knew you were going to have a child. So you didn't figure out a backup plan. I don't understand this. Like, I was that boss. I was not nice.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
Yeah.
Candy, everything
There-
I know about you is completely the opposite of some of the things
New
I'm
York,
hearing here.
New York is cutthroat. Like, you've got to move or you are going to get run over.
Wow.
So when I was running large companies, I had teams of people. I was running it. We were I think I called most of them and apologized. They were like, "You're too hard on yourself. You weren't that bad." And I was like, "I know I wasn't very nice, you know." But I also then realized, and as I had a crib in the office to take care of my child, which, and I've also mentioned the postpartum. I didn't want any part of this child after I had it. I loved my child, but I was going through a lot.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
And I realized also that when my team had children, I wanted to give them the time off. So
Yeah.
how could I afford that?
That's been very important in our own firm.
Right. And like you think of these things. And then I had another one come to me when I asked randomly, what would be something we could do as a firm? Somebody said, I would love if I could take my kid to the doctor when they were sick. I would love when I was sick if I could go to the doctor. I don't have health insurance.
Wow.
Mhm.
Like, okay, I dropped my family health insurance, came back to the team and said, okay, here's the deal. Until we all have health insurance, nobody has health insurance.
Oh
I
my
no longer have health
goodness.
insurance. Now, my husband at
Wow.
that point was not happy.
Yeah.
And I said, I've figured out what it's going to cost for all of us to have health insurance. Here's what I will do. I will pay for you and your children. Your husband has to pay for himself. And I figured out the cost. And I am telling you, like that, I had enough revenue to bring the insurance back for the team
Mm,
because
yeah.
I knew I needed it and I knew they needed it. And it was a really good incentive for me. And I was like trying to explain, like, this, it's not just bringing in an account to cover that. Like, we have to have that extra money to pay it. And we did, and we did it quickly. And I said, okay, these are the things that are important to me. And if clients don't want to work with us in the way that we've got things set up, they're not our client. And it's okay because
That's
there's plenty
okay.
of other
That's right.
people that will take them. And we're only making room for people that also understand our family comes first. If you need a financial statement, we're getting it to you every month. If you forgot you needed it for something and our kid's sick, you're screwed. Sorry. Like, we're
This
gonna stay
reminds me
on and call
so
pages.
much of this reminds me so much of a client of mine who ran a small bookstore here in our neighborhood. You all know that I have a hyper local client base. She had a phrase, no margin, no mission. And what that meant would her team would come to her and say, "Oh, we have this great idea for a program where we're going to have give books to, after school programs, and we're going to do a thing where we host a a book club, and we're going to do all of these different things in the community. And she was like, if we are not making enough money to support those missions, then those missions can't happen, right? The margin has to come first. And you can have that mission, but as you said, you're building to, like, here's my mission, everybody's going to have health insurance. And now you build the margin to be able to afford that mission. And I really, really love that phrase, but I've always thought of it in terms of what we do in the community. It's never occurred to me to take the perspective that you're taking, which is no margin, no mission. If we don't make enough money, we can't have the mission that we want internally for our teams and for the health of the families um, of our employees. And I think that's absolutely, absolutely inspiring. It takes the compassionate pricing that Questian was talking about earlier, and really sort of makes the compassion internal first, external second. So I really, really love that. I would love to talk a little bit more about some of these hidden drivers and how we can solve for them. So we've already talked about relationship orientation and compassionate pricing and prioritizing loyalty over revenue. But some of the other things that my research turned up is that women tend to base price on cost rather than value. So that cost sensitivity is a big one. Another one is social conditioning. So in society, we're taught not to take up space. And not taking up space is part of keeping prices, quote unquote, reasonable, making ourselves smaller, making our impact smaller. And by contrast, men tend to default to value based pricing and bolder assumptions and projections and higher starting points. And Candy, I know that you've been in situations where you've had an opportunity to see a direct comparison of how men were pricing versus how women were pricing. Can you please tell us about some of your first tell us about your emotional reactions to discovering this information?
Oh, pissed me off. Totally pissed me off to see this. And, you know, I have a lot of friends in the industry, and many people know I worked for Woodard, and I coached and I taught, and I got to know a lot more people and have deeper conversations about pricing and strategies and what they do. But I also have this whole other group of male industry leaders, CPAs, CFOs that would, when I got to know them, they would say, "Hey, I'm going to be doing a sales call. Would you come do it with me? I'll say you're on the team, and then you could help me come up with pricing." I'd say, "Yeah, sure." I'd listen, and I'd listen in, and I start to suspect they had no idea about this client or the industry. And they brought me in knowing, I'm going to cinch this thing and ask the right questions and bring this stuff up and figure it out. And then we'd end and they would say to me, "Well, what would you charge?" And this is after I got my pricing better.
Okay.
And I might sit and say, "I know what I'm doing. I would do this for like 5,000 a month." And like, 5,000 a month? Are you insane? I wouldn't do this for less than 10.
And these are the
Now,
people who actually didn't know the industry, didn't know the client, and
this is
didn't
the thing.
understand the
And I would
problems.
sit and say $10,000 a month. And they'd say, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Can I ask you something? Do you know how to do that work?" And they'd say, "I have no idea, but you'll clearly do it for 5 and I'll charge them 10."
Candy, no.
I feel the anger
I'm
boiling up in
so
me as I'm
mad
sharing.
right
And
I
now.
know. And I'm like,
has happened more than once. No joke. And every time they had no idea what they were doing. And if they weren't going to bring me in, they said, "I'll do it myself for 10 grand a month. I'll just figure out how to do it." And I'm like, there are things you need to think about for that kind of client. Like,
you can't just do.
and
Oh,
yes. And
I'm
they're like,
sorry. It burns me when people make it sound like doing bookkeeping and accounting work is simple. Like, oh, here, let me just take this course that takes you 3 hours and you're going to know everything you needed. No, I'm
right.
sorry. You're not servicing your clients the way you should be servicing your clients.
And
Then
so
that's
here's our thing. It's easy for us because we know what we're doing. Right. So
Right.
we
In
go
my
in,
head, it's like, well,
we're
that
sitting
will
there
only
saying,
take me an hour, but it's not an hour. It's an hour plus 30 years.
Yes.
experience
And this
and a
person is
master's
saying,
and
I have to learn this whole thing. This is going to take me forever. Or I got to like find a person who could do it that I could sub it out to them. They're not even worried. And so,
Yeah.
because it's easy for us, we price that way because
Mhm.
we want to help. We're hearing the sob story, we're hearing how bad it is, and we know we can fix it. We know what to do. We can make it better, and it's going to be easy because we know what we're doing. And so we charge that way instead of charging for what we are bringing to the table, the conferences, the education, the years, all the things we went through to know this, that it's easy and that this person can call us and we're going to have answers or know who to send them to, or to know
Mhm.
enough to say, I could answer that, but we really need a lawyer here. Let's bring
Right.
that
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Make sure, like, we know enough of what we know and don't know. These other people don't, but they have confidence. And people with confidence have no problem asking for something that they don't deserve, that they haven't earned. They don't care.
But
They're
here's the thing,
going to ask
Candy, is
for it.
that I find myself going around in circles with this. Question and I have talked about this a little bit on some of the other episodes. I find myself going in circles because I know that we need to have more confidence in order to ask what we're worth, right? But I don't want that confidence to be empty. And lots of other women are like that too. We say, "Well, yes, I know
When
I
there's
need to." Go
no,
ahead.
sorry to interrupt, but there's
I'm
no
proud of
fake
you
it
for
till you make it.
interrupting. You're finally getting
No
to the
fake.
point. I love this about you, Question. I love seeing
I
you.
know, I'm not an interrupter.
It's
Um,
great.
it's the like, I don't ever wanna hear somebody say fake it till you make it, right?
Right.
Like,
We
that's I don't
don't.
know if that's where you're going, but that's
No,
what
it's
that's what came
exactly
up to
what
my
I'm
mind. It's like,
saying.
no, don't fake it. You can't fake it.
We don't want you to fake it until you make it, but we
No,
do want you to see that you should have more confidence than you have. So, how
that's
do
right.
we know in and of ourselves? Like, how do we know where that line is drawn? Like, how do we? And so I find myself in a catch 22 about that all the time. To develop more confidence, you have to learn more. But at what point, when you are undervaluing your own confidence? That's why I named this episode Marking Ourselves Down,
Down.
because
Yeah.
we are doing it to ourselves. How do we know when you get to that moment where you say, I am confident that I can, and I'm going to price confidently because I know what I'm doing? How do we get to that point without constantly undervaluing ourselves? And I get stuck.
That's a good point that you're making. Also, what Candy had said is that once we master that thing and we've done it on repeat, you for 30 years, Nancy, you start to think of it as simple, but it's not simple. It's not simple at all. And so it's like, where does that, like you said, that cycle happens to me as well. It's like I was trying to price a cleanup today and I was like, this is nasty. And I was like, I was excited about it when I saw it because I was like, this is gonna be fun. Um, but it's like that the in my mind, I'm going, "Oh, I should charge this amount." But it's like, because I know that I can clean this up. I know I was underpricing it in my mind already just based off
Really?
of what she said. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that point that she just made completely just
Right now, so before this episode, you were working on pricing a cleanup. Now you've sat here with Candy for a while, and when you go
yep.
away from from recording this episode today, you're going to price it higher.
Higher because it's a difficult cleanup, it's not an easy one, and
Yeah.
I know I can do it because I know that I'm good at it, but in my mind, I know that if I would have tried to price it probably earlier on, I would have been like, "Oh, that's really hard. I've gotta price it more." So I probably would have priced it more a couple of years ago than now.
Because it
So,
became easy for you. Okay, well, that
yeah.
actually, there are 5 solutions here that I have that are really specific, and one, and you've just illustrated one of them. So I'm actually going to start with this, with the third with the third one, because building community is part of the solution here. Normalizing these conversations around fees and raises. Um because you came here and had this conversation with a colleague of yours,
Yep.
you're now going to go back out and you're going to price it. You're going to be like, "Oh, wait a minute, just because it's easy for me." You're going to price based on value more than you're
Yeah.
pricing based on how many hours it's going to take or
Yeah,
how
and I
easy it is for
also
you.
recognize that this and something that comes to mind too, which I wouldn't have been thinking about before either, is this particular client has already went through a couple of accounting firms that haven't been able to solve their problems.
Oh, interesting.
And so it's like, I know what I need to do to fix it, so I know it
Yeah.
can be done, right? But those are things that, I don't know, just after sitting here and having this conversation, it's like, you know what? That's something that needs to be taken into consideration too. It's like, I can provide this solution. Somebody else, several people have not been able to get it done for you. There's value in that.
Yeah. Yeah, for
So
sure. All right, well, Candy, let's go through the rest of this list with you because I want to make sure people have these things your story has just been so eye-opening and uh, in part
might be a good
inspiring and
storyteller.
yeah, you are
Yeah.
a great story. All right, so I'm going to list the 5 things and you can talk about them in whatever order you like. One of them is reframing pricing. So starting with value, not cost or comparison. Number 2, practice raising rates. You can do this incrementally, just rehearsing that ask over and over. My colleague Andrea McDonald, she talked about how many iterations she's gone through in order to get pricing right in her firm. So she doesn't raise prices for everybody at the same time. She just picks a group. And I love that idea of like practicing raising your rates. Building community, we just talked about, normalizing these conversations. Modeling confidence. So women showing other women what's possible, which is what you are doing for us right this very moment, Candy, and to recognize that the decisions that we're making here, this is number 5, they have long-term impact because closing this pricing gap between men and women is not just helping us personally and professionally, it's helping, as you discussed, the employees in our firms. It's helping the industry as a whole. It's helping people who are having these conversations on podcasts like Unbalanced and She Counts and taking the stage at conferences to talk about pricing and getting this out in the open. We can actually make a difference when expectations are not go with a woman because she'll charge less.
Oh, that
Ouch.
just made me so angry.
Ouch. I know. I'm like,
If you knew the number of articles and studies that I read coming into this,
same.
that
Yeah.
yeah. Again, I will link to these in the show notes so that people can get incensed on their own if they would like to do that. But this is actually a thing. So Candy, let's talk through these solutions because I know that you've put a lot of these in place. How can you help us do these 5 things?
Community, 100%. I do often, people will call me and say, I have a new client. Can I hop on a call with you? And can we do pricing? And I do this for free for anybody that wants in the industry, as long as I
Oh
have
my
time.
gosh.
You might not
Wow.
want to. You might not want to put that out there on a
Well,
podcast.
maybe not. Too much for her friends. But seriously, I think you need to start somewhere or find a friend you can talk to. Don't just go at it alone and say, I have a new client coming in. Can I talk to you about it? Right? Even if it's not me, call somebody you know and ask somebody you respect, somebody that you know in the industry, and go over these things. I like to look at what the person would have to pay to bring in a person to do this job. And yes, I'm not doing the full amount. I mean, if the person I'm going over, and not maybe at my level of expertise, but for the job that they're looking for, maybe it
Right.
pays, I don't know, $60,000 a year. So why would I feel bad about asking for 3,000 or 3,500 a month? they're getting me, which is way overqualified from that $60,000 person year. They're still saving money. They're getting an entire team. They're getting the work done professionally. I'm not going to feel bad about that. And
Wow.
I have told people when I've spoken to them, this sounds like a great opportunity, but you're not ready for a firm like me.
Oh, that reminds me of some of the language that Carlos Garcia talks about, in oh, I'm trying to remember what exactly to
For
say. He's
what to
got that.
say, which
Yeah.
I've read that book. I love that
Yeah.
book.
Yeah, there's a version of it that's specifically for accountants. That's the version that I would recommend people read. And he spoke about this at Bridging the Gap as well. But that language that you just used, like I'm not sure you're ready for us, that actually
Yeah,
creates a
it
sense
does.
of
And then
wait
I
a
give
minute,
them a
I
step
but I
by
want to
step.
be ready for you.
Right. And I give them a step by step. Here's where you need to be ready for a firm like me. Right now, it'd be way too much money for where you're at in your company's life cycle. But when you hit this point and you're looking to achieve these things, I'm the exact firm you want to bring in the door because we'll make sure you get there. But right now, you could get away with a firm that can offer you these things. But
Do
you
you
need
have
to
a
grow your
template?
revenue.
It's just like,
It
no.
just honestly, and it was more as I got more comfortable with me and speaking the truth and not worrying if they were gonna like, I feel like I say it in a nice way. I don't want them to, hate me or
Yeah,
of
you're
course I
not
don't want
meaning to
anybody to
be
hate me,
offensive. You're
but
just
I'm
being
trying,
honest.
yes, to say,
Yeah.
look, you have a great business model here, but these are the steps you need to take before you come to me. And I'll explain to them, and I might say, we start at $5,000 a month and you don't even have an office with, you don't have a receptionist yet. Like you've got to do a lot of things and we'll throw out numbers. Do I have people paying less than 5,000 a month? Yes, you know, but it has to make sense for us. But I do like to look at what it would be comparable for them to bring somebody in, knowing what we're bringing to the table. I do also want to consider what they've been paying, where their revenue's at, what they can bring in. And maybe for what I need from my company, they're not large enough for us.
Mhm.
Could I do the work? Absolutely. Oh, and also question with the cleanups. I don't, I feel like I can't reward people for bad behavior. So if you need 12 months cleaned up and my monthly rate I figured was going to be 3,000, well, we have to go back the 12 months and it's the same monthly amount because if I discount it, you're going to say, why did
Yeah.
I sign on monthly? I'll just come in once a year and you'll do it.
Do
So,
it at tax time.
yes, no more rewarding bad behavior.
Now, see, I don't price it that way. I know that that's something that a lot of people do. But because I work with micro businesses in my community and we're mission driven, I want them to be motivated to work with me because I know we're really, really, really good. And if I want to support them and their role in keeping chains out of our neighborhood, then what I'll do is I'll say, well, I'm gonna give you a break on this, but this is contingent on an engagement moving forward, a monthly engagement moving
Yeah.
forward. You can't just, oh, well, we're not going to do the cleanup and then in a year do another cleanup. If you
No.
do the cleanup, you have to commit to working with us on a monthly basis moving forward.
Right.
The other alternative is, it's if you're not wanting to charge that same amount every month, it's like, I will do this for you one time. I will
Right.
not, yeah, like you said, if you don't sign on and you come back to me, you can look elsewhere. Like, I'm not going to give you a reduced rate. But I think that that's a much better idea is just saying, hey, if you sign on for monthly recurring services,
Yeah, I
then
won't
we'll
even
do
do
it.
the cleanup unless they commit to the monthly
Yeah.
recurring
And I
services.
won't offer recurring services until after the cleanup. And I've decided, do I really like these people enough to stay with them every month?
Oh, wow.
So I consider that my dating. The cleanup is the dating
The
phase.
dating phase.
Are they
You
getting
know,
me what I want? What's the gut check? Because I could get through a cleanup, no problem. Do I actually still want to talk to these people when it's done?
Wow.
yeah.
That's what I decide. And then say, look, we've got you straight. You can find anybody to keep you going. We don't have the capacity for additional monthly work. We just don't like you. But You know, it's the gut check of, is this going to be too much on the team because they were such a pain during the cleanup?
Now,
You
Yeah.
know,
is this the same thing
I
that you do for your fraud work or not? Is this only for the bookkeeping work?
fraud work is very different. Um, fraud work is project based. So typically you're going in to do a project and hopefully it's not recurring work, right?
I
Hopefully
guess
it's a
that's a
one
good
off.
point. It's fraud.
Um, and I will do a plug for Anchor and getting paid up front,
yeah.
which, and for there's so many platforms out there, get paid up front. That was a big mistake I made, was thinking people were going to pay me after. If you don't pay me up front, I don't lift a finger. I
Yeah.
do nothing.
I am
So
the same. I am the
yes,
same. I will at least get 50%, if not three quarters, and then build a rest at the end.
yeah, you have to
So
get paid up front and
yeah.
just ask for it. Just say,
Yeah.
here's how
I've
we
never
work.
had a problem. I've never had a problem with someone saying no. One of the things that I do is, you were talking about this dating period. My firm is small enough that I can do this. I know there are a lot of bigger firms that wouldn't do this, but I really I'm very good at vetting whether or not someone's going to be a good client and meet my ideal client profile in about 15 minutes on a call with them. Like, I can tell very
Wow.
quickly. Yeah. So this is that's something that I tend to I can tell before I do a cleanup. I've never gotten myself in a situation where I've ended up in a cleanup and then, been like, I don't want to work with this person anymore. It's never happened. So it's
That's cool.
I'm I read people really well. That's one of my talents.
Well, I found my team may not. So I don't do any of the client work anymore. So
Yep.
I'll turn a lot of people down, just no, we don't have capacity, because I just don't like their vibe when I'm talking to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I may bring them on for a cleanup or something, and I think they're awesome. Like, I love artistic people who are totally flaky, and
Eccentric and
I love that. My team is very,
they don't.
we want stuff done. And so they may not vibe with that. And so we'll make a decision, because I'm not doing the work. I don't have to deal with it. They do. And as long as we all have food and we have a roof over our head and we can make payroll and stuff, we'll figure things out. But I'm not going to bring in something to torture them if
Yeah,
they're going
I
to hate it.
agree. Well, this has been such an amazing conversation. I feel like I've really learned so much myself here today. And as we begin to wrap up, we'd like to ask our listeners to follow our She Counts podcast LinkedIn page and to join in on the conversation by sharing under the episode, marking ourselves down. Do you feel that you struggle with pricing and asking for what you're worth?
And before we sign off, I want to leave you with a quote by none other than Oprah Winfrey. You get in life what you have the courage to ask for.
Thank you so much for being here with us on She Counts, the Real Talk podcast for women in accounting.
If something in today's episode hit home for you, I know it did for me. Well, that's exactly why we're doing this.
So that you feel seen, heard, and never alone.
Remember that you can get CPE credit for listening at earmark.app. Links to that, as well as how to learn more about our sponsors' solutions and any other resource, will be in the show notes.
And please subscribe. If you haven't already subscribed, please do so. We would really love it. We haven't asked for everyone. Give us some reviews. We want reviews. We want to hear what topics you want to hear about. I think I recently put a post up on LinkedIn about that. So send us a message, an email, let us know. And please share with other women in accounting who you also feel needs to hear this.
Many thanks again to our amazing guest, our incredible friend, Candy Bellau. We are so glad you could join us today. What a wonderful conversation. And thank you from the bottom of my heart for being there for me during this very difficult time and coming to our rescue today. And we knew we were eventually going to have you on the podcast to talk about pricing. It just happened to be with More like 24 hours notice. So oh, we really
It was
appreciate
amazing.
you.
Yeah,
Yes. Oh, you are
very
exactly the
much.
person to make big change in our industry in this particular area. We're really lucky to have you.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for having me here. It feels good to like some of this out and share it, and hopefully people won't make the mistakes I did.
Well, Candy, let us know where people can find you.
Oh, I am on LinkedIn, Candy Bellau, Bellau. And I do have a consulting, well, I have an accounting firm, America Business Solutions, which we do primarily controller work. And our new company, which is a spinoff, I don't know if you're hearing the Seinfeld reference, is Vandelay Forensic Group. And that company will be entirely for fraud work. And we'll see. I also did recently pass my private investigator class. So
Ooh.
we're trying to also
Congratulations.
incorporate some of that work with the fraud work.
Wow, that
That's
is
amazing.
fantastic.
Congratulations.
And I love that both of your companies have Seinfeld references. That's pretty hilarious.
It's funny.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. And we'll see everyone in 2 weeks.